Do you remember that wedding from a month ago? Yeah, like that one that you needed to start editing yesterday? But you also need to prep today for your wedding tomorrow, and you're leaving for your first vacation in forever on Monday. So what do? It seems that the only creative part of your edits are the excuses you're going to have to give your clients. We have the solution, Wedditor. Wedditor is a team of top wedding editors, project managers, and account coordinators that help us wedding filmmakers edit. They match the right editors with your style so you can spend your time where it matters most, on your business. Nick and I both use Wedditor, and we don't know how we would run our companies without them. It takes a team to build an amazing business, and you shouldn't try to do it all on your own. Head over to howtofilmweddings.com/Wedditor to help you free up your time so that you can focus on growing your brand. Be sure to use promo code HTFW for $50 off your first project. Wedditor, more than freelance, more than outsourcing.
A lot of the times, yes, I am doing it for the couple, but ultimately I'm also doing it for myself. It's my creative outlet.
Sure.
And it's not necessarily for other filmmakers, not necessarily for the client. Yes, those are factors, but a lot of it is whenever I'm satisfied with it, when I'm happy with it, whenever I feel the film and it moves me, then I'm happy with it.
Hello and welcome to the How to Film Weddings podcast. My name is Nick Miller, and today, like most all other days on this podcast, I am joined by John Bunn. John, how are you today?
I'm good. It is snowing here in Tulsa. It was really nice yesterday. Now it's pouring snow. It's in that winter mode. I haven't shaved in over a week. I haven't cut my hair in months. I don't have any weddings for months. I'm just kind of vegging out in my sweats, and that's my new life right now, and it's awesome. I love this time of year, and I really love the conversation that we just had.
Yes, we just had a great conversation with Kayln Rhome, who runs a little company called White and Revery.
He's
with his
famous.
wife Christine, but it was just Kayln today. Levi Tijerina from his company is Set. They worked together for a while with White and Revery. Now they're kind of separate, doing their own things. But we specifically talked a lot about color correction of your films, and Kayln is a genius when it comes to color and all that kind of stuff. So we asked him a bunch of questions to help you, maybe some practical things that you can do on a wedding day to improve your color. And then Kayln and Levi made a pretty awesome announcement fresh on this podcast for the first time today. So you're going to definitely want to check that out. So let's go ahead and jump into the How to Film Weddings podcast. Well, thank you, Kayln and Levi, for joining us on today's podcast. How are you guys doing?
Doing awesome.
Doing great. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So for maybe the 3 or 4 people that don't know who you guys are, because you're kind of a big deal, kind of famous in our industry and stuff, why don't you just share a little bit about who you are and your business and stuff?
I am Kayln from White and Revery. My better half, Christine, is the other part of that company. We've been filming weddings for over 7 years, and we absolutely love what we do. And so we've kind of been in the industry for the past 4 years or so, more so in the education space. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of have worked on creating some other courses and things for wedding filmmakers to expand and help elevate their films. And we've been doing that for a few years. We also co-started Venture Workshop.
Yeah.
And that has been going for, I think, 2 years now. Was it 2 years ago or was it 3 years ago? Can't remember. I think it was about 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was.
But it feels like it's been going for a while. We're about to
Yeah.
have the fourth one. Man, wow,
Yeah.
time has flown. So that's what we've been doing. We live in Denver, Colorado. We have a 3.5-year-old daughter named Zeely, and we are currently also renovating our house that we just moved into a few months ago. And so our time is torn between fixing up a house and editing and filming and creating more content. So it's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, I'm Levi Tijerina. I actually worked with White and Revery for about a year, and so Kayln and I are wrapping up that season and moving into other things. But I have worked on Venture as well, and I run a commercial studio called Set, S-E-T-T, where we've done projects for Topo Designs and Toyota, and working on releasing more and more content out into the future. So I mostly center around photography and color theory. And I also live here in Denver, Colorado. Been here for 7 years and have a wife and a 2-year-old daughter. And it's been a fun journey kind of exploring what the world has been like the past 3 or 4 years. I've worked at a creative agency here in Colorado. And so it's been a kind of a whirlwind of changing things up from photo to video to consulting to everything in between.
Man, that's so good. So you guys are... Oh, I'm sorry, John. You go ahead. I'll let you say
just said the word love it.
Oh, okay.
That's my 2 cents. Love it. Back to you, Nick.
Love it. Good job. So with having you guys on and a lot of your expertise, for those of you that don't know, Kayln is a genius whenever it comes to color and color correcting and editing his films to look a certain way. And so I'm sure a lot of you out there have purchased White and Revery's Timberluts or Dolce. Is that the other one?
That is it.
Yeah. So you purchase those and use those, and they are great quality LUTs. But some of you might be thinking, okay, so I bought this LUT and I applied it to my footage, and now my footage, it doesn't look like theirs looks. I think that there's this idea out there that a LUT will, quote unquote, solve my color problems if I just apply it. But there's a lot more to coloring your films and stuff than just simply applying a stock LUT that you purchase. You have to do a lot more. So today we want to spend a little bit of our time talking about color correction and how to get your films to look the way that you want them to look for your finished product and stuff. So I think there's a couple areas that maybe we can touch on. First, the wedding day, and then in post. So how about, Kayln, how about like on a wedding day, whenever you are preparing to film and stuff, when it comes to end color results, what are some things that you are thinking about on the wedding day while you're filming?
That's a good question. I mean, I am the kind of person that loves to read manuals and make sure that I'm using the optimal settings on things, and I'll test and troubleshoot and A/B test different things to get the right settings that I like. With the gear that we're using, we usually choose that based off the type of films and style that we're going to be filming, because that plays a big part into the end result. And what I'm looking for is to make sure that my profile that I'm using to shoot with is going to give me the right latitude and everything in post whenever I'm color grading. A lot of the times, depending on the style, we have kind of changed our style over the past few years, and that depends on the type of stories we want to tell and the way we want to capture that. So there might be moments where we are filming and our goal is to protect the highlights and have a very moody vibe and kind of very shadow based and shadow heavy. Well, I'm going to film with that in mind and knowing that my color is going to pull out those different areas in the shadows and not fall apart. So a big part of the way that we optimize shooting and capturing the best content and quality is our use of monitors. So we use small HD monitors on our cameras. We have the Panasonic S1 and we also have the GH5, and we use the small HD Focus 7 and then a couple of the 5-inch monitors as well. Those are really great because they're also touchscreen, so it's really quick, but we can also load our LUTs on there. So if we are shooting and we have one of our LUTs already loaded on there, we can easily identify what it's going to look like in post, and it might help us recognize, oh, I actually can't shoot this dark because the LUT or my grade is not going to showcase the colors properly. I might need to raise my exposure a little bit. So now we are shooting a little bit more backlit, light and airy per se. So that we actually have to shoot with our exposure a little bit higher. So now we'll load our LUT, and it actually helps us recognize where we need to be setting our exposure levels and our white balance levels. Because if our white balance is slightly off, it really accentuates that with the LUT, and then that helps us know, oh, I'm really too warm, or I need to cool this off. Or it lets me know, you know what, if I want to protect the skin tones, I need to change my composition, and I need to move away from the window light, or I need to change the angle that I'm shooting. So it plays a big role in the way we're shooting, knowing what we're going to be doing in post. And part of that is loading the LUTs and the look that we want for that type of film and that type of environment on our cameras so that we can prepare for the best image possible in post.
So, like, I think a lot of us that don't read the manuals, I've never read a manual in my life. A lot of us kind of show up or like turn our camera on, put it on auto white balance, and like just kind of wing it. I think so. So if I'm talking to some of these people that are out there, like, I'll be honest, I didn't mess with Kelvin settings until this year, and that like is my 13th year in business, you know. And so I kept looking at Nick's footage, I kept looking at Ural's footage, and I'm like, my goodness, what is going on? And I'd always be on auto white balance, you know. And so maybe you could talk to the listeners just a little bit about auto white balance versus thinking through some of the Kelvin settings on a wedding day. What are you thinking of, like, when you show up to a wedding or when you walk into a room? What are the things you're looking at to determine your color settings for that specific scenario?
I will go ahead and start off and say that each camera is different, and what we've noticed shooting from Canon, then Sony, and then Panasonic is we've kind of seen a lot of the different colors and the way the cameras respond. So you, John, shooting on Canon, correct?
Yes.
And shooting auto white balance, that auto white balance on the Canon responds a little bit differently than the other cameras. So when we first started shooting, we actually shot on auto white balance a lot. It wasn't until we switched to Sony where we started noticing, wow, it actually changes white balance a lot quicker than Canon did. And so that helped us recognize, okay, in this scenario, I actually need to start shooting manually using Kelvin and dialing it in, or taking a picture of a white card or a gray card and actually setting my white point for my balance in camera. And that helped us make sure, because in post I could see all the discrepancies and the little different shifts that would happen whenever I'd be filming a couple talking or reading a letter, and then all of a sudden the light's changing. And so I couldn't have that because it made it grading more difficult. So every time we now set our white balance manually, when we walk into a room, we'll set it there. If we walk outside, I'll set it there, and we'll kind of just bounce between that. But usually I don't have to set it too many times throughout the day if we're shooting in natural light scenarios and not mixed lighting. Also, because we want the best image possible, a lot of the times if we're shooting indoors, we will most likely turn off any lights that are inside so that we don't get mixed lighting results, because it makes it more difficult for lighting, less pleasing to the eye, and it just makes a better image overall. So if we can control that, then we'll do that. But what's really great about the Panasonic camera, the GH5 and the S1, is we can actually just go to our Kelvin setting and actually shoot, just point at something white really quick and take a quick picture, and it instantly sets the white balance.
That's cool.
So that helps really quickly within 3 clicks. So I can do it faster than I can setting the Kelvin. So I'm all about speed as well and efficiency. So as long as I can move my cameras, that's why sometimes we don't use monopods or tripods too much during prep, because we like to go handheld, because we also have good image stabilization. It allows us to get different angles that we couldn't do a lot quicker. So everything for us is efficiency, making sure we get the best image possible with being mobile and the cameras that we have set up.
So you mentioned a couple things. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So Kayln is much more of technical and dialing in all the settings. I'm much more of like the philosophical, theoretical behind it all. But one thing, like when I think about color theory, I know my background comes from photography. Some of the things that are different is that there is the narrative development, I think, is really important going into a wedding day in particular. And I think a lot of people jump in and just kind of run with it. But kind of going back to what Kayln was mentioning, there is this kind of foresight that has to go into what you want to do with your footage or your photos or whatever you're kind of creating. I think, and I think a lot of us don't think about narrative development as an integral part of story. And if we think about weddings, if we're honest, they kind of really make for bad stories, because there's no character development. Hopefully there's no character development. Ideally, there's no conflict. All the things that you really want in a great like film, you really don't want to happen in a wedding day. And so it's really important that you think about kind of start to finish what you're wanting to create, and instead focusing on different elements to drive the story. And so for us, we often think about color theory in kind of an idea or mix of like your mood, your environment, and your palette. And mood kind of being the idea that there's the things that we rely on for stories, or more so, I guess I'll speak for myself, I rely on for stories, is who's involved in the And the wedding day itself, the light impacts kind of like how the wedding day feels and how it kind of evokes things inside of you. And then once you have kind of like the mix of the light, the people, and also the location, you can start developing a consistent color palette across the day about how you kind of combine all those things into one space. And so I think even pulling back from just color theory in general, like applying a LUTs, visualizing it in your monitor, it comes back to what you want to create with that day. And I think it really helps to have a knowledge of like, where are you shooting? What are the locations you're at? What do you want the client, the end user, the viewer to take away? Because if you're thinking about those things beforehand, it'll help you shoot the way you want to be shooting no matter what. And then from there, having a consistent LUT to apply to that is so much easier when you already know what you're creating versus kind of walking in and saying, well, I don't really know what I'm going to get today, and we'll just kind of wing it. If you walk in trying to wing it, you're already kind of like at a disadvantage.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good advice there. You're thinking, just for... two really popular, like color moods, would be like dark and moody, dark, rich, really toned, or the light and airy, those are just two contrasting things. And if you're like Levi, what you're saying, if you want to create like a dark and moody film, then that means that you're not going to, do, direct sunlight, big backlight, you're not going to film them in those locations, because when you're putting your film together that you want to have this look, like it won't match up. So having a game plan ahead of time and figuring out how you want to use the color in your film and how you want it to look, that's a really good thing. I think you're right that a lot of us just, especially when we're first starting out, just kind of run with it because that's what you do.
Or for 10 years of your business, whatever. It's fine. It's fine, guys.
I think a lot of people don't really know how to kind of get handed a situation and run with it, because that's what sometimes happens. Like if you're shooting a moody day in Iceland and you have full cloud coverage, it's one thing. But if you shoot that same day in Iceland where it's full sun, not a cloud in the sky, you're not going to get the same moody look. And knowing what am I going to do with these colors to get the same feel, or how do I still kind of create what I want to create, or how do I make the greens look the way I want them to look, it's important to have those things kind of preconceived in your mind before you walk in and just say, it's a one-trick pony, because it's just not. Nothing's ever a one-trick pony.
Yeah. And one thing, Kayln, I remember you said this at that first venture whenever I met you, and you were like talking about the colors of your film, and you're like, we kind of have our color style and I'm going to approve it and stuff, but we actually kind of color each film a little bit differently based on the feel of the day and the look of the day. Using that Iceland example, if it's cloud coverage, you're going to color it one way, but if it's, sunny, you're not going to use those exact same things. So I just thought that is a different approach. So many of us will come at it and say, when it comes to music selection and that kind of stuff, I picked the music for my couples, but you take that one step further and, kind of apply the color to that same idea, right?
Yeah, it's kind of choosing the palette for their story. And I think one thing that we love to do, White and Revery, is we try to make each film very unique to each couple. So on our website, we usually notice that all the different films kind of have their own unique story and taste to them. They're not edited the same way. They don't have the same flow. Some things you can find similarities in, but for the most part, we can actually find a unique story and a unique look. And also we have a variety of different environments. So each environment's going to dictate part of the story as well. So I do tailor the color palette to, focus on the mood that I want the viewer to feel from that film. And that plays in the role with the environment as well as the color palette and how the colors complement each other well.
Yeah, that's really good. If you're able to think that way and kind of tweak your LUTs a little bit to even you pick the song that's just for them, the day's just for them, but you're even coloring it just for the clients too. That's just another step.
It also kind of puts us at a longer turnaround time. I've had Christine got upset with me a little bit, but we've actually sent a film off to a couple, and the couple loved it, and I'm like, I still don't like it, and I spent another 3 days on the film still color grading and working with it, because a lot of the times when I'm color grading and I'm working on a film, a lot of the times, yes, I am doing it for the couple, but ultimately I'm also doing it for myself. It's my creative outlet. And it's not necessarily for other filmmakers, not necessarily for the client. Yes, those are factors, but a lot of it is whenever I'm satisfied with it, when I'm happy with it, whenever I feel the film and it moves me, then I'm happy with it. So that's kind of my bar for what moves me in a film and what helps make things stand out. And that also dictates sometimes longer edits and more involved process, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, I think like it makes your films, obviously, I mean, it's caused you to, you know, go to that next level, obviously, the attention to detail. I did want to ask before moving on to the next thing, sorry if I was interrupting, Nick, but just, I guess, some tips for some of the, not necessarily newer people, but like, what kind of tips would you want to give to maybe people wanting to up their game? Just some like tangible, like things they could start doing right now on the wedding day. What types of tangible tips would you maybe recommend for the listeners out there?
I think one of the most powerful ways to kind of implement this new change or this feel into your film is using a monitor. Honestly, that I've had a lot of people that have used small HD monitors, which is the ones that we recommend because we've loved working with them. But whenever they put that on their camera and they start filming, it really transforms the way they see their image. Yeah. So it changes their composition. It changes. It helps them focus on better exposure levels and white balance. So it actually will make their films a lot easier to grade and work with. And it honestly got us excited for filming because whenever I'm shooting at something that might not move me right away, but then whenever in post we're looking at something, it's like, oh, this is beautiful. Right. I just didn't see it on this little bitty screen. It does transform the way you're feeling and the way it implements your footage. So that is a quick way. It is definitely a costly way because you have to invest into some gear, but it is something that I think you can tell a difference right away. And then also just starting with some basic LUTs. I wouldn't, let's start with the monitor, getting a really good image and focusing on great content that has good exposure levels and good white balance. And I think that'll set you up for a successful post-editing color grading workflow.
Yeah, that's good. We know the time suck that is searching for the perfect song for your wedding film. MusicBed has spent years collaborating with artists, bands, and composers to make it easier than ever for anyone to find the right song for their video.
With amazing artists like Chapters, Tony Anderson, and The Light, The Heat, MusicBed is the best place for wedding videographers to get licensed music.
Their subscription service was a life changer for me, especially since all of their subscription music is pre-cleared for every social media platform: Facebook, Instagram, Love Stories TV, and my personal favorite, YouTube, all pre-cleared.
And if you are interested in a free month of a MusicBed wedding subscription, head over to howtofilmweddings.com/musicbed. When you sign up, use the promo code HTFW and you will get your first month for free. Yeah. That's really good. That's really good. So one thing that I wanted to touch on, if you're kind of like John or I was for a long time, or so many people that are auto white balancing and you want to kind of move into the Kelvin world a little bit, kind of a if you're in sunlight, a good measure for your camera is going to be around 6,000 Kelvin is a good starting spot. If you're outdoors, and if you're inside at a dark reception, around the 3,200 Kelvin, is a good, is at least a good starting point to kind of get you, where you need to go if you're looking to start using Kelvin and that kind of stuff. Levi, I just thought of a question that I wanted to ask you, and This just kind of has to do, as we're moving kind of into the post-processing, that's kind of going to be our next kind of series of questions. But I know we have a lot of photographers that listen to this podcast that have ventured into filmmaking and stuff. And I know when my wife got into color correcting our films, she got really, really frustrated with the color because color correcting a video is a lot more difficult than color correcting a photo. So you, as a photographer that has kind of jumped into the video a little bit, maybe do you have any recommendations or thoughts on how to help photographers kind of jump into the color correction animal that is video?
Oh man,
That's a good question.
I'll be preaching to the choir. I'll be preaching to the choir because I'm still uncovering all those things for myself. So my exploration into video has actually started really recently, and it's actually been in the commercial space, not in the wedding space. Mm-hmm. And so for me, one thing that's been really helpful with thinking about coloring films, because I was literally working on a film this week, just getting out the door and sampling with and playing around with some different grades on, was storyboarding and shot listing every shot out. And so when we deliver a proposal to a client, and this is again in the commercial space, it'll have conceptual shot lists saying, hey, here's the angles we want, here's the looks we want. And whether that's, something that you do in your mind or you do on paper, because photography, the color grading in photography is like you can correct so many wrongs easily by working with raw photographs. And if nothing works, you throw it in black and white and you're good. And so there's so many like easy ways out with photography. I often say that black and white covers a multitude of sins.
Preach.
Because it's just an easy way to get out the door, and you're like, yeah, I don't like the colors, so I can kind of cheat on this photo and be done and move to the next one. But in video, obviously, you don't really have that capability, or you can't really. If you go black and white, you kind of got to go all in or not. And so for me, having a storyboarded look of what I want to get out of it helps me think about color theory in general. But like, even I was talking with Kayln this week about grading, and it's just not the same because you're using a little slider on an individual for like white balance on an individual clip, and you have to color correct each clip in addition to adding kind of a finalizing look over it all. And so I think walking in the door with a better idea of what you want to get out of it helps a ton. Even writing things down, like I will actually physically write out what I want. Like I want my shadows to have like a slight pink tone to them. I want my highlights to have this tint of blue. And I'll even look around and find like on a color chart, like the kind of blue I'm looking for, and then kind of work into post-production into actually looking to find how I can get as close to that color as possible. And so I think for me, and this is just because I don't work as technically, I kind of work off how I feel. And so if I see something I like, I will try to pull those colors in and incorporate them. But it's really hard for me to visualize and sit in front of a computer and then just like drag around until I get the right look. I have to kind of come in with an idea. And oftentimes that idea for me starts with music. It starts with looking at other films. It starts with looking at photos, and it starts to kind of like try to conceive of the mood that I want, and then writing out things to the mood that I want to get out of it. And granted, like the shoot I was working on this week was for Huckberry, and so it's a clothing brand, and we had some automotive shots and stuff in there too. So it doesn't always translate as well to weddings, because weddings are also really hard too. You don't have the control. You can shot list as much as you want, but you walk in and you're kind of like, if they choose not to, if they choose something different, or if it rains outside, like everything could be thrown off. Mm-hmm. And so I think you have to have a little bit of grace in that into yourself, knowing that like you can only accomplish what you're given. But for me, having a written out idea helps a lot. Because it gives me a kind of a cornerstone to come back to. Because I'm not sure if you guys do this, but I'll grade or I'll color correct in Photoshop or in Lightroom and come back the next day and I'm like, I don't even know what I was thinking. This looks like trash. And like, how do my highlights? Yeah, like first time. Yeah, man, I that's what I wish, man. But so having like a cornerstone to get back to, like setting a mood like on paper is really helpful for me. And that won't help everybody, I know, because not everyone works that way. But that helps a ton because going from photography into video, it's frustrating how different and how much more complicated it is in video. And so you have to find ways to like allow yourself to kind of quote unquote cheat through the system. And for me, that's like visual cues, but with notes.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I know. My wife Jen, whenever she colors, if it's kind of a new project or whatever, like she'll find a photo that she likes, and that's kind of her hero photo, and then she'll kind of base she'll tweak it so she can kind of has a reference, because just going in blind can be kind of difficult. And she's also, I know people like Kaylin, you're really technical and you can look at waveforms and you can figure that kind of stuff out and stuff, but she's like all by eye, like she just
waveforms.
She just goes in and does it. So she's not super technical with it, but she's really good at it. So I know that's how she does it. So
I mean, I've watched Kaylin grade films though, and he goes off the waveforms and it's like, wow, this makes so much more sense, and it looks way easier with the way you're doing it. But then when I'm like, I don't even know how to break those panels. So
I always trust my eye over the waveforms, but I think waveforms comes in handy as I'm going through the film and realize, okay, I'm slightly starting to fade away from the original concept and look I was going for, So it's always good to reference, but I always trust your eye.
I was going to ask, do you guys have yet like a video behind the scenes of you color grading a film?
We do. It's in our master class.
Got it.
We have a master class of our whole process from ingesting all of our footage to delivering it to client, and we have a whole coloring section that goes over. There's multiple videos on our coloring and how we affect the colors, how we use our tools, what to think about when you're grading, how to do some advanced techniques and changes and stuff like that, and using waveforms. So that's kind of, we're hopefully going to be creating some more content soon that's going to be a little more present on YouTube soon. So
where can they find that content? Because we'll link it below, but where's a good spot for them to find that class?
I mean, we have everything on our website. So whiteandrevery.com, white I-N, Revery, not white and, even though I do own that domain too, and it'll just forward anyway. But if you just click on LUTs or workshop tab up there, then you can kind of see our masterclass and more information on that.
Perfect.
Okay. Cool. So let's talk a little bit on kind of the technical side. Do you let's talk monitors and that kind of stuff. I know that, that's really important if you want, good color for your films. It needs to be calibrated properly and all of that kind of stuff. So what do you do when it comes to, your monitor that you're using for color correction?
Right now, I edit on a Mac Mini, and I have an LG 5K screen that I've calibrated. I use a company called X-Rite. I've also tried the Spider Elite and done both of those. They do pretty well, but that is kind of important to make sure that the screen is calibrated, because whenever you're editing an image, if you're working on a screen that might be a little more contrasty, you might be introducing less contrast in your footage for the look that you want, and then whenever it's distributed on Safari or Chrome on mobile devices, it's going to showcase different results. So you want to kind of have a good playing field in the middle. So sometimes if I'm creating content just for Instagram, I'll actually change my color calibration on my screen to match what the iPhone or a mobile device might look like a little bit more, so that I know that the more people that are watching the content is seeing it exactly how I wanted to create it. So sometimes switching calibration for different outlets is how I kind of change the mood and feel, so that I can make sure everything is translating well. But definitely making sure if you have a calibrated monitor, that's great. And the way I do that is by getting an X-Rite probe or a Spider probe, and just getting that screen calibrated. Also, you can do it on your laptops and everything. So it helps keep a good, consistent calibration across all the tools I have.
So we're getting into the geeky side of things, which is really interesting to me, because I'm not naturally into this kind of thing. So, having you on today, I thought it'd be really cool to kind of walk through a little bit of your workflow when it comes to color grading. So let's say you've finished a wedding, you've shot it, you've got it into your computer, Christine's edited it down. What does your workflow look like when it comes to your color, the color grading process for you? Are you going through clip by clip? Are you adding a LUT and then doing white balance? What does that look like? What have you found to be the best for you?
There's a traditional way of balancing every shot, then adding a look, then doing secondary color correction, and then kind of final tweaks. Because I already know the look that I want, I skip the first process, because I'm already going to readjust things after the look. So the first thing that I do is, Christine's edited this amazing, powerful, emotional film, and it's my job to make sure that I don't destroy it.
Step one, don't destroy film.
Yeah, step one. So it is a little bit different, though, if you're on Final Cut versus Premiere versus Resolve. So some of the things I'm going to say are going to be specific to Final Cut, and I'll let people know whenever I'm doing that. But the first main thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to watch the film, and I do all the finalizing. So I'll finalize the audio, finalize the shots, and then once we're at picture lock, then I'll move into the color grading. Sometimes for inspiration, I just work on the first minute and color grade it until I feel like the film moves me, and then I continue throughout the rest of the film. So a lot of the way that I start is I look for a shot that I feel reflects the entire film. That might be the cover thumbnail. It might be an image that obviously has the couple in it with skin tones, and then the color palette of the environment. And I will start with that shot, and I will usually add an adjustment layer over our entire film. Sometimes I'll use an adjustment layer for different sections of, exterior shots versus interior shots. But for the most part, I can usually use one LUT for the entire film. And I'll put that in an adjustment layer, drag that across all of the clips, and anything that I put in this adjustment layer will affect everything below it. So all of the clips that are below it. And I will navigate to that clip in the timeline and figure out which LUT that I feel like reflects this film the best. I'll adjust the opacity maybe or intensity of it. I might tweak it a little bit and say, hey, maybe this film I want a little bit more warmer green tones, so I'll adjust the greens of that LUT. So I can I never necessarily just stick with just that LUT. I might tweak the LUT, which is, I advise everybody to do if you can. Just get the look that you're wanting. Don't feel like, oh, I have to use this LUT as is. No, just like we cut up all of our songs in our music tracks, we've never used a song from start to finish ever. You do the same with color. Always tweak it to the environment that you're filming and the mood that you want to convey in your color palette. So I start there. That's my first step, is just finding that shot that I want to reference, getting the grade that I want, and then I will start moving into the rest of the film. A unique thing that we do in Final Cut is we have the magnetic timeline, which we have our primary storyline in, which are usually all the talking points, which are going to be vows or toasts or things like that. That's going to live in that main storyline. And the way we do that is, in Premiere, you nest all the clips together pretty much, but we create a multicam, and so we have all of the clips in that compound clip, that multicam clip. So whenever we're looking at it on the timeline, I can actually just double click into that multicam clip, and I can color grade that shot inside it. And then when I pop back out to the timeline, all of those clips are already color graded throughout the rest of the film. I don't have to copy and paste. So in Premiere, if you're doing a multicam, it'd be more nested, and so I grade inside the multicams. That speeds up the process, and it also is a big way of keeping your look consistent across the film, because if you are starting with vows and you're ending with vows, well, I want that first shot and the ending shot to be the same look, obviously. And as you're color grading throughout the film, sometimes you get a little carried away, and it's starting colors are popping stronger, there's more saturation, you're starting to warm things up versus cooling it. But always having that multicam to reference kind of brings you and centers you again as you're going. So it's a really great way to kind of get going with grading. So that's a few of the steps, and then I kind of get a little crazy and keep going. That's just the beginning for me.
I've seen Kayln edit films or color films, and it'll be it'll be done today for sure. And then 4 days later of him working on it every day, and he's like, I'm almost there.
But then it's worth it.
I think a lot of people think I'm going to buy a LUT and I'm going to apply it, and then I'm going to get Kalen's look, or White and Revery's look. And, just hearing you say 4 days, I don't know if that's literal, but holy crap. We say it about people that are charging a lot of money or doing, it's you're not going to get there in your first edit. It's going to take time. You're going to need to invest in things like, these master classes or color, grading classes. And you can work with a LUT, is what I'm hearing, but that's not the be all end all. It's not like you just lay that on top of it and it's like magic fairy dust and your film looks perfect. It's definitely a process. So you have to, if you're listening to this, know not to compare yourself, necessarily just to what Kayln is doing, but say, oh, I'm inspired by that. I'm going to work to get better with every single film. That's all.
To be honest, I color grade every individual clip of our film. So every clip usually has some exposure change or white balance. It's not like every clip is, hey, I nailed focus, I nailed lighting, I nailed color and everything on the wedding day. Hardly anything I have to do. Sometimes that might be the scenario, but most of the time I'm always touching and affecting color. So if you're looking at our films and man, I put this LUT on there and it doesn't look like theirs, well, remember that I'm still putting that LUT on there, but I'm adjusting each clip because the LUTs are designed that I've created for proper white balance and proper exposure. So if those levels aren't correct, the LUT isn't going to look that great. Or maybe you're using a profile on the camera that is pushing colors differently than what we recommend for that's designed for that LUT. And so in that case, then you have to go and you have to adjust the way that color profile is pushing it. Maybe you have redder skin tones in the shadow side, or the greens are a different color. Well, then that means you need to go into your HSL, your hue, saturation, and luminosity levels, and you need to adjust that specific color and change it so that you get the results that you want. So just know that, whenever we're throwing LUTs on clips, it's never a one, fix all for everything. But the whole goal is that it produces that it matches the environment that you're feeling, the mood that you want the viewer to feel, and it has the color palette that will balance out the feeling and the shots and the footage that you're creating.
Yeah, I also just want to give a shout out to the law of diminishing returns, because this is something that Kayln and I talk about a lot.
Oh man, this is tough.
Is that the law of diminishing returns essentially states that it's based on your time that you put into a project. And I think it's really important. Kayln sets really high standards for color, and he puts a lot of work into it, and he gets there and he makes it happen. And then Kayln and I are perfectionists in different ways, and Kayln's perfection is he does it for himself, which I love and I really admire about his work ethic. I think what's important though is if you spend 10 hours getting your film to 80% colored or edited color, whatever that looks like for you, that if you spend another 10 hours on the final 20%, the last 10 hours are not worth as much as the first 10 hours are, because you're getting so much less out of that. That's the diminishing return. I think it's really important, especially if you aren't good with time management, or if you're newer into filmmaking, to really know what you are putting into your films, because you may not be getting as much out of that time as you could be or should be, especially if you have a full season behind you. And so I think my mind works more conceptually in terms of how does this one piece fit into the whole. And that's not to say you shouldn't do great work with coloring and how you edit, but I think it's really important to also know your strengths and weaknesses and know when to say, hey, I spent 40 hours on this. I think it looks great, but maybe there's these small tweaks, knowing when to call it, or knowing when to get good feedback and to work in partnership with other people. Because I think it's about having a community around you that can support your films and support what you're doing, and also give you good feedback to say, hey, this is great, but now you're getting carried away. And I think not everyone has Kayln can get carried away in a good way and
a bad way.
In a bad way. And I think that's okay to know that about yourself too, and to know your limitations as a filmmaker.
Yeah, that's why Christine kind of is my sounding board. So it's hey, this looks great, but I'm it doesn't look that great. So I'm still balancing it. But there's also people that make the argument that, well, my couple still book me and I'm not using any LUTs and everything. I'm okay, good for you. But also, what is your clientele? The people that hire us are hiring us also because of our color and our look. So if people are satisfied with your work and you're not using any LUTs, or you're not putting a lot of time into your color grading, then that's fine. That's the clientele that you're wanting to, attract. But for us, because of all the details and the tension, a lot of the time too, our clients are planners or other vendors, so not just the client. And I will tell you that planners do recognize color and recognize palette and recognize how it fits with their photographers that they're recommending. So even if the client might not recognize, sometimes the planners or other vendors that you want to be shooting with will be recognizing those small details. So that's also something to be considering and thinking about.
Yeah,
that was a deep.
I think even with
it was. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, even with diminishing returns, I think it's recognizing that that there's so many currencies that we trade in. The biggest one obviously is money. A couple gives us, let's say, $5,000 to shoot a wedding. You get to the editing room and you're spending 25 hours just coloring a film, and then you get, it's 80% done, and you want to spend another 25 hours in the last 20%, you may not be trading in financial currency. You may be trading in time, you may be trading in referrals, you may be trading in other things. And so recognizing that there is a lot of things at play in creating a great film, and outside of just time and energy and money and color, it depends on what you want to get out of your career. If you want to move ahead into a different price bracket, move ahead into different planners, those things will cost different things. Some of it will be time, and some of it will be learning expertise. And I think that's why White and Revery has stood out, is that Kayln has put in that extra time. That last 20% has been a investment, not necessarily in the financial aspect, but in the time and dedication aspect that's moved them into other realms that they wouldn't have had doors to other places.
So tell me, what CRM do you use? If you're not sure or you don't know what a CRM is, I'm about to save you a lot of time and therefore money. CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management. Basically, a CRM is an online service that helps you better serve your clients. HoneyBook is both mine and John's CRM of choice. We absolutely love it. HoneyBook allows us to do all of our correspondence, contracts, and payments all in one place. One of the features that I love is the automated workflow. We all have emails that we send out to all of our clients, right? At 6 months, 3 months, 1 month, the week of. All of us do it. Automated workflows make it so that those emails can go out automatically. Since I don't have to take time to, 1, remember to send them out, and 2, to write them, I save time and make more money by working more efficiently. Are you interested in saving time on the business side of things? Go to howtofilmweddings.com/honeybook for a free 1-week trial. Also, because the Honeybooks really like me and John, we can give you $200 off of your first year, and that also comes with a 60-day money-back guarantee. So what are you waiting for? Go to howtofilmweddings.com/honeybook to start saving lots of time in your business. Oh yeah, legally I have to tell you that John and I are affiliates of HoneyBook.
That is really good. That is really good. So, a few of the things I heard as you both were sharing some knowledge there was, one, calibrate your monitors, so you can get the right color, and even knowing and understanding. I think a lot of people don't understand this, that Chrome, Safari, Explorer, all of these different web browsers actually make your films look different, the color, and people just don't even think about that. They're just used to the one that they're. So
go watch a film. Yeah, go watch a film on Chrome and Safari and see which one you like. I definitely prefer Safari over Chrome, but Chrome allows 4K. Safari doesn't necessarily. So it's a little give and take there.
Yeah. So that's something to keep in mind. Kayln talked about his process and color correcting every single clip instead of just applying one thing to all, going back and you don't have to tweak it and all that stuff. Levi, I thought that was great, that diminishing returns law, that 20%, the last 20%, like, what is that worth your time or not worth your time? Like, where can you get in doing that? So you guys have shared a lot of tips. Do you have, before we move on to our question of the day, do you guys have any more little color correction tips or little nuggets that you want to share with us before we move on real quick?
I have one. So if you have a shot that the white balance is just way off, like quick ways to fix that, usually people will go for the temperature sliders or tint. And sometimes the problem with that is if you look at your waveform or your RGB parade where you're looking at your white levels and your black levels, if it looks too warm or too cool, but your white levels are already matched up, then I don't touch the temperature slider because that's going to shift your red, green, and blue channels evenly somewhat. But I will actually work with the color wheels. So the first thing I do is if I see an image that is too warm, I need to cool it up, I will go to my midtones in the color wheels and grab that and push that towards blue. And usually that will fix the white balance issue without affecting the white levels or the black levels. So that actually helps get a better white balance fix instead of having to do a temperature slider and then going to your curves and then changing your white levels at the top to get a white level properly set out and then adjusting your shot. Like the temperature throws everything off kind of. So I always recommend if you're working for white balance, and I would work with color wheels and change your midtones and work with that to get the right white balance you want.
Okay, that's good.
Awesome.
That's good. Good tip there.
All right, I want to move into the question of the day presented by Wedditor. More than freelance, more than outsourcing. Our good friend Cliff Lawson asked a question that I thought was really great. He said, what are some signs you are looking for to know you need to change a particular setting? And on the other end, what are some signs to indicate you've got it just perfect? I'm thinking in camera on the wedding day.
I mean, usually part of the environment is going to dictate my settings and my profile and my composition. So I have on my small HD monitor, I can swipe to the right and see an exposure assist, and that will give me a spectrum of different colors over the image. So red will be, blown out, blue will be really dark, and then green is going to be right on the IRE scale, the right levels of where skin tone range should be, whether that's like 60 to 70. And so that level is dictated on green. So I can easily be filming and swipe over really quickly and see if my skin tone levels are great. And if I notice that it's too, like if I'm trying to protect a little bit of the highlights outside a window, but I still want to have good skin tone levels, and I realize when I swipe over that, their skin is closer to the blue range, it's too dark, that means my colors and then the skin is not going to match the look that I want. So I'm going to change my direction and maybe shoot less towards the window to get a better exposure level of skin. So usually adapting to the environment and changing composition based off of feedback from my camera is one way that they all kind of interlace and work together for me.
I'm hearing it again and again. I think it's really important. We talk a lot about drones and we talk about cameras. We talk about a lot of things, but having a really good monitor, like I got the small HD this year and it completely changed the way that I did what I do. Like seeing it on the bigger screen, you do feel it differently, and being able to swipe and see the different colors, like I can't stress enough how important even just the small HD, something so you can just see it a little bit better and use some of these tools, it's the same that I liken it to, like getting better audio equipment or lenses. Mm-hmm. These things aren't going to wear out over time. Like a good monitor will work with any camera. And so having a really good monitor, like invest in that. That should definitely be on your short list if you don't have one. And hearing from you that that's so important to you, it's like no wonder their color is so good. They can really fast in real time be like, yep, swipe, oh nope, don't sit by this part of the window, come sit over here, yes, that looks better. And on the wedding day, the more that you practice that, the better you're going to get at that. And so I mean, I'm sure watching you, Kaylin, on a wedding day, it's just like, oh well, duh, there's like a bunch of those kinds of moments. But without having some type of a monitor to be able to see that, if you're using the little 2-inch screen on the back of your camera that doesn't tilt or something, have that monitor. It's going to be a great investment into your business.
I mean, also that dictates, literally the type of shots you can do. I mean, I use a monitor on my DJI Ronin S, and I can't do certain maneuvers unless I had a monitor laid out in a specific way. And if I didn't have that, I literally cannot get that shot. And I feel like that helps elevate our quality of our film. So literally investing into a monitor that can be used with any camera. So it's like investing into a good lens system per se. Mm-hmm. Then it's going to help transform your footage, in my opinion.
Yeah. And just to clear something up, Kaylin and John are talking about swiping on the screen. A lot of these external
swipe right.
A lot of these external monitors, what they do is they have this thing called false color. And that's what Kaylin was referring to, but it kind of almost puts your image where he was talking about skin tones or whatever is going to be like maybe like a green teal kind of color. That's the false color, and if it's in that range, then you know that it's exposed properly and all of that. But when it goes to like a darker blue or a red or orange or something like that, then you know that it's off. Like that's what he means by the swiping. If you're listening to this, you're like I don't understand how this monitor is helping me other than making it big. So you can do focus peaking, which will show you, if something is in focus, it'll be outlined, with either red or yellow or blue or white or whatever color you set it to, and then the false color, that kind of stuff to make sure that you're all exposed properly. So that's what that's referring to if you were questioning that and didn't know what was going on. So as we've had you guys on, and we've been talking a lot about color and color correction and the process and LUTs and stuff, I know that you guys have some pretty big news that you want to mention today on our podcast about something that you are launching like right now this very second. So I'm going to give you guys a moment to talk about your new endeavor that I think will help a lot of our listeners.
Take it away, Levi.
Well, so for the past year, Kaylin and I have been working on a project together, and I think it actually it's been in the works for a long time, but we had a conversation at Venture in New Mexico where me and Kayln sat down and I told him, I said, hey, I think what we are building with White and Revery, because at the time I was working with White and Revery as an integrator, I said, well, I think what we're building here can expand so much, so far beyond the borders of what we currently have built. And this was probably about 2 months after launching the Dolce LUT pack. And in that moment was born an idea to help bring color grading tools to filmmakers kind of across the board, and initially starting right now with weddings. And so what we are launching is a new company called Gamut. And Gamut is intended to be a...
Just takes your breath away, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's just, I'm getting choked up thinking about it.
Choking him up.
So good.
Gamut's a color grading solution. It's designed to help filmmakers expedite their workflow and elevate their films. And so what we're doing is we're building like a whole host of LUT packs that are designed to focus on the things that we think are most important, which is mood, environment, and palette. And so these LUT packs are designed to help filmmakers kind of find their mood, know which mood that they're shooting in and what speaks to them, be conscious of their environment and find a pack or a situation that like affects how they want to be filming, and then give them like a palette theory across the board to make their films consistent. And so Gamut is going live today.
Yeah,
which
it's live, baby.
Which we're
Check
stoked
it out.
about. Yeah, we're stoked about. And so we are actually going to be bringing in all of White and Revery LUTs into Gamut. We're
also launching a brand new LUT collection with the launch. So I've been working on this for this entire year. This one is called Adagio. Keeping with the theme of music tonality, we have timbre, dolce, and adagio. An Adagio collection, this one is going to be a different look than those other two that we've created. This one is definitely closer and more inspired to fine art photography with film. So the color palette is very vibrant greens. You have really great pink skin tones. The focus of shooting is going to be at a brighter level, so your exposure is going to be a little bit higher. More backlit scenarios, more even lighting. There's just a lot of great ways that this color kind of comes into play. But also I realized whenever we were starting to shoot a lot more luxury weddings and more high-end planners this year, a lot of the photographers that they were hiring were more film photographers, and they had a certain color palette that I wanted to blend well with so that our narrative and our story would reflect the couple, since they also chose this photographer. And so we're shooting in more similar scenarios, and our films can stand alongside those photographers a lot better, and it speaks to the story and the mood and the style that we're wanting to film. So this new collection is live on our website, gamut.io, and that is where you can check it out, watch the before and after shots. I mean, this one we've tested on a lot. This one's tough. One thing I noticed whenever we're working and creating LUTs is if you're going to push colors a lot and you're going to have vibrant pieces, it's going to introduce a lot of color shifts or areas that it can go wrong. So we've been testing on tons of different cameras and perfecting it and finding a good balance for this new LUT collection that will blend well in a lot of different scenarios. And we're also going to kind of give examples and ways to shoot so that you can make these LUTs kind of stand out a lot. But that is the new collection from White and Revery called Adagio.
Yeah, and kind of going what I mentioned earlier with diminishing returns, like we know we can't shave off all your time coloring a film, but we hope that like by releasing really like technical and really well thought out LUT packs, that we can help carve out a lot more of that time, so that the time that you spend on grading your films is really resourceful and really helpful, because we want to help give filmmakers like just a time resource, because we know that coloring is not everyone's like forte. And so if we can help them have tools and also give them right educational assets to help implement that, we can help speed up the workflow for them and help them focus on the things that they want to be doing more of, which could be editing or audio or maybe even more color grading or running a business, because there's so many elements that go into to being a filmmaker. On top of that, we're also releasing LUT packs for other contributors. So we are going to be releasing a pack for the editorial and wedding photographer Nirav Patel. Nirav is an amazing photographer.
Amazing.
He sees light in a way that no one else does. He shot my wedding, and I have seen his work.
A little partial.
Yeah, I'm a little partial, but Nirav is incredible, and his stuff is mind-blowing. The way he sees color and light is incredible. And so we are developing a pack that's actually going to be geared more towards, you can use it for weddings for sure, but it's actually going to be kind of geared and usable for editorial or commercial work as well. And so what we want to do, like while Gamut is going to tailor a lot of our LUTs to wedding filmmakers, we do want to start releasing some LUTs that can be crossed over into non-wedding work as well. So we think Narav's pack is an awesome way to just start dabbling in that spectrum. It's what I used to work on the stuff I was doing for Huckberry, which is cool. I think it's just, there's these really cool, like actual cool tones that go into it, and the skin tones are really beautiful.
It's really awesome.
And so
I'm like, man, I should just use this instead of my own LUTs.
Yeah. And so we're also going to be releasing a pack from Mango Street. If you follow them on YouTube, you know that they're Daniel and Rachel are awesome and just have great content.
We shot their wedding, our Faroe Islands elopement. That's the couple.
Yeah. So that they're going to be releasing as well too. And we have a lot of other contributors in the pipeline for the rest of the year, as well as into early 2020. And so, awesome. While we're starting off with LUTs, there's going to be a lot more things that we won't talk about quite yet, but a lot more things that will be coming as well too, in terms of like helping people with their workflow and kind of guiding them in education as well.
We'll be creating more educational pieces too that are going to go alongside Gamut. A lot more resources for visual examples and how to get the colors right. Also how to color grade, different techniques that we use. We're going to kind of make some things available to the mass. So just be following along, because we have a lot of new things that are going to be coming out in the coming months as well.
Yeah. So if you do want to check it out, it's gamut.io. And we are also launching, in collaboration with How to Film Weddings, if you are listening to this episode, you will have the ability to download a free LUT by heading over to gamut.io/HTFW, and that's Gamut, GAMUT.io. But you can grab a free LUT for listening to the How to Film Weddings podcast. So gamut.io/HTFW for that free LUT.
Love it.
Yeah, it's been stress tested and everything.
That's an amazing offer from you guys. Thank you so much for offering that to all of our listeners. So again, head over to gamut.io/HTFW if you want to pick up your free LUT, but also look around at Gamut.io for all of the stuff that I know that Kayln and Levi will be offering our community from the color standpoint. So one more thing that we want to talk about that I think we would be sad if we didn't touch on while we are here, and that is a little workshop that you have put together called Venture. Kayln, do you want to share anything about Venture 2020 while we have you on here real quick?
I feel like every year it gets better. We've learned a lot from this last one, which was a little bit different from the scenario that we've done the past few times. And we've carved out a lot of new avenues and a lot of things that we're going to be implementing at the next venture. It will be hosted May 4th through the 7th of 2020. So may the 4th be with you, and Cinco de Mayo on a Tuesday. We are going to be having some fun times those days. But it's going to be out here in Denver, Colorado, and it's going to be 4 days workshop. It's going to be the largest wedding videography workshop in the world. We are, definitely more than halfway sold out, and we still have 6 months ahead of. Yeah. So, we're on a good pace, and we have a lot of great, exciting speakers that are going to be speaking and presenting, and we're going to be adding more in the coming months as well. But you definitely need to check out ventureworkshop.co for all the information, the different speakers that are going to be on it. A lot of the speakers that have been on the How to Film Weddings podcast are going to be present. A lot of new and up-and-coming awesome filmmakers that I feel like have a great voice that we want people to hear are going to be present. We're going to have people that are not wedding filmmakers that can still speak into this industry come and present, whether that's a lawyer, brand development, marketers, marketing gurus, and everything like that. But it's going to be the best place for you to build community and strengthen and elevate your films for sure. So you definitely don't want to miss it. And if you want any information, ventureworkshop.co.
And just think it's worth mentioning too that if you do want more information on Venture, all you got to do is just keep listening to the How to Film Weddings podcast, because they're going to be some of our speakers will be here as guests, and there'll be some other things that they'll be talking about and sharing as well. So stay tuned to the podcast just to keep hearing from more speakers, as well as like just what more goodies.
And maybe Nick will show up this year. We'll see.
Yeah,
I'm not sure
maybe.
yet.
Maybe.
We'll have to see. I mean,
we'll have to see.
May the 4th be with him. I'm saying. No, that's all good stuff. I mean, I will say, just as a testament, I went last year. Nick was in Alaska on a family vacation. And the relationships that I made just with people there, I'm still interacting with, several of the people there, and it's such a great place for community. We love Venture Workshop. We think it's amazing. It's rad. It's fun to go out to Denver. Hopefully it won't snow on us again in May. Maybe it will. I don't know. Right. I mean, it's kind of cool, I guess so, but it was a great time. And so it's definitely worth checking out, ventureworkshop.co.
Yeah, there's actually has been snow at every Venture Workshop, right?
There has. The first one is Colorado, which you remember, Nick, was crazy snow.
I do remember that.
And then Silver
up
Falls.
This mountain, we had to drive up it, getting our cars and stuff. That was crazy.
Yeah. And then Silver Falls had snow the first day we arrived, and then New Mexico. Yeah,
it snowed when we were in New Mexico.
It snowed in New Mexico. Yeah, that was so weird. So we'll see. And it snowed last time.
Yeah, so. I want to thank Kayln and Levi for joining us on our podcast today. Be sure to go back and listen to this episode, especially with like some color tips and all that stuff. Don't forget, check out gamut.io/HTFW to pick up your LUT, look around at all the resources and stuff that they'll be offering there. And don't forget to check out ventureworkshop.co if you want to go and be a part of this amazing workshop. I know John and I both separately have had amazing Venture Workshop experiences. So again, Levi, Kayln, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate your time.
Thanks, man.
And thanks for having us.
Yeah.
We want to thank again Kayln and Levi for joining us on the podcast today. We wanted to make note that if you do go to gamut.io and sign up, you will get 20% off of your purchase.
Come on.
20% off. That was something we forgot to cover in the podcast. We wanted to be sure to do that right here, right now. Also, head over to howtofilmweddings.com. We have lots of digital products that you can buy. One of those is a budget sheet. It's now, money is becoming, kind of a problem right now for some of us in our businesses with the winter coming and all of that. So if you buy our budget sheet, it will help you kind of plan out your year and figure out when you need to make some more money. So we definitely think you should check that out. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up. If you're listening on your favorite podcatcher, leave us a review. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, we will see ya.
See ya.